Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk to you about a specific character, but it's not a character review. I know some of you are expecting me to report on Jean Grey now that I have her at 6 stars, level 60, but I'm not ready yet. I still have more testing to do with the character, but in the meantime, I do have a bit of a gripe, and it centers around Jean Grey, but it doesn't directly involve her. It actually involves some materials. But in order for you guys to understand why this gripe is important to the community, because I'm hearing a lot of people talking about it, and also important for me to shed light on, we have to go back, rewind about 16 months or 15 months or so to the update 2.0, when Netmarble released the Black Order characters with Proxima, Corvus, and Black Dwarf, following shortly thereafter Ebony, Supergiant, and Thanos. Now, when these characters were introduced, if you guys are not familiar, we also got a new type of farmable resource. We got Chaos Nordstones, and we got Black Antimatter, BAM, and CNS, or Diversity Stones, as I've dubbed them. And these have become a staple in the game. You get them from World Boss, you get them from World Boss Ultimate, you get them from the Double Rifts, you get them in the store if you want to buy them, you also get them in Shadowlands. There's many different game modes now where you can obtain these two key components. And then what you have to do, at least for the Black Antimatter, is you have to process it and use gold and your tiers to turn it into other shapes, which will then rank up the Black Order, will rank up Dormammu and Odin and Doctor Strange and some other situational issues like researching for epic quests and stuff like that. And then, as you guys know, the Chaos Nordstones are used primarily not only to tier 2 new characters, but also to give mastery rank ups to the Black Order, Dormammu, Odin, etc. So these two are the fundamental pieces to tier 2ing characters that are not X-Men. So if you want to tier 2 a character the natural way, the organic way, you can go ahead and do so by pouring in bios for the character, as well as Chaos Nordstones and Black Antimatter, as you can see here. And of course, as always, you need to give that sweet, sweet gold. Now, why is this important? It's important because when these items were introduced, there was a lot of backlash from the community because they were incredibly difficult to farm for. And they still are. But because people have advanced their playstyles and advanced their rosters and everything, the community has come to, put up with and tolerate the low drop rate of these items, particularly Chaos Nordstones. They still drop, as you can see, less than half as often as Black Antimatter. So you end up with a imbalance. And given the fact that you actually need more Chaos Nordstones than you do Black Antimatter for at least non-native tier 2 characters, it does further that frustration. But we've learned to deal with it, and we've even learned to hoard these resources for upcoming updates. And that is a natural part of an RPG game, of an ARPG game. You find a place that you can farm for items, and then you farm the shit out of it, and you get a whole bunch of good items, and then you save them all, or you sell them all for gold, and you save that gold until something better comes along. That's part of the grind. That's part of the reward. If you get good enough at something that you can do it repetitively and reward yourself, you should be rewarded. Now, we were introduced for the X-Men, and a lot of people were upset to find out that you couldn't use bioselectors on the X-Men. If you try to use a bioselector now, you cannot find the X-Men in this list, so they're semi-premium characters that require these new X-gene selectors. And as you can see, some X-Men are missing, obviously Magneto being the only one that's not native tier 2, but that's okay. If they wanted to introduce characters that weren't available for bioselectors, that's all well and good. We have an abundance of bioselectors. We get more than 200 per week just from Shadowlands, not to mention all that we get from login, rewards, check-in events, etc. But then Netmarble decided to introduce a new form of currency for ranking up or mastering the X-Men, and also for the native tier 2s, Wolverine and Jean Grey. And that was in the form of Phoenix Feathers, which you can look at as Black Antimatter. This is the Black Antimatter for the X-Men, at least for this batch of X-Men. And then the Mcron crystals, which are like Chaos Nordstones for native tier 2s. Mcron shards, however confusing that might be, are actually the Chaos Nordstones for non-native X-Men. So if you want to rank up Cyclops' Mastery because it gives all attack and all defense. You need to use Mcron Shards. If you want to upgrade Jean Grey's Mastery, you have to use Mcron Crystals. So they've actually gone a step further and divided the Chaos Nordstones into 2 different types of Chaos Nordstones. Because as you guys all know, we have these Nordstones, which are the ones for non-native tier 2 characters who are non-X-Men to get their mastery up. And of course, the respective motorcycle color will apply to the respective type of the character. So if I want to rank up Gwenpool's mastery, I use the green ones. If I want to rank up Deadpool's mastery, I'll theoretically use the red ones, but maybe I will use the green ones as well. Now, the problem here is not in the fact that they introduced new currency or new resources. I can accept that. The X-Men are a new step forward for the game. This is the true 3.0 update, and this is exactly the same kind of update we got with 2.0, introducing a new type of currency, a new type of farmable resource, and new types of characters. We got the Black Order last year, we're getting the X-Men this year. I'm totally okay up to this point. Here is where Netmarble loses my support and where it lost some of the community's support. If you notice at the bottom on the right side, it says owned capacity, and then there's a number, and then there's a slash, and then there's another number. The problem here is that second number, 2,000. What that means is you can't actually hold, in your inventory at least, more than 2,000 Mcron crystals. As you can see in my other inventory, in my gift inventory that I have from buying things in the store or getting them as part of Shadowland completions and World Boss Invasion stuff, etc. I have an abundance of Mcron crystals, shards, and X-Gene selectors. I have way more than 2,000. I think I have 4,000 Mcron crystals in my gift inventory, but I can't collect them. Why? Because Netmarble decided to place an artificial ceiling on these 3 new resources, and they're all 2,000 for some bizarre reason. Now, this poses a few problems moving forward. For one, it means that we will not be able to automatically tier 2 a native X-Men if we were to get another one instead, let's say 4 or 5 months. Even if I'm good enough with my roster to farm the Feather missions, which are the Veiled Threat and the Mutual Enemy missions in the Epic Quest, even if I was good enough to farm them every day and I was diligent and I was a good gamer and I put in my time and my effort and I farmed them, not that they're difficult missions, but they could have been difficult, I still will not be able to hoard enough resources to tier 2 a native X-Men would they come in the form of, Iceman or Emma Frost or Apocalypse. I would be stuck at 2,000. And what that does is it incentivizes me to then spend money on these packs that will inevitably reappear in the store once new native X-Men, native tier 2 X-Men come in, or get them through some other means. And that to me is a bit of a betrayal of their own system. They introduced Black Antimatter and Chaos Nordstones. They probably knew down the line, a year from then, maybe less, maybe more, they were going to do it again with some new currency. Maybe they didn't know it was going to be X-Men just yet, but they probably had a good idea for what their plan was. Nobody sails blind. So why do this now? Why change it up? And to illustrate my point a little bit more clearly, I want to draw some comparisons for you guys. So if we go into the Doctor Strange Epic Quest, if you guys are not familiar, there are research missions in the Doctor Strange Epic Quest. I can't show them to you now because I've completed them, but I want to remind you that the most difficult research quest for the Doctor Strange Epic Quest requires 1,200 Chaos Nordstones. You have to collect them. It was arduous for me to do it and for other people to do it. It's still difficult today for new players to grind out 1,200 Chaos Nordstones, but it's okay. The capacity is unlimited. For the Wolverine Epic Quest, one of the research missions requires 1,000 Mcron crystals. Now, 1,000 is less than 1,200, but when your capacity is only 2,000, that is crooked. That is unfair that you would do that. You would basically mirror the requirements, but somehow place an artificial ceiling. I have 9,000 Chaos Nordstones. I'll probably have 9,000 Mcron crystals in a year from now. But I won't, or I would have had 9,000 if there was no artificial ceiling. And yes, it's easier for new players to catch up with X-Men and it's harder for veterans like me to ramp up my roster much faster in future updates. I understand that it provides more parity between new players or returning players and existing veterans, but it punishes people who play the game. And one thing you don't want to do as a developer, I'm pretty sure, is punish people who play your game every day. It doesn't make sense. Why would you make the numbers the same if you had no intention of giving us the opportunity to save up these resources in the same fashion that we've done for the last year plus with the Black Antimatter and Chaos Nordstones? It doesn't make sense, and I'll hit you guys with some more numbers. Native tier 2 Black Order characters like Corvus Glaive and Ebony Maw and stuff like that, to get their mastery up to 6 stars, it requires 1,350 Chaos Nordstones. It requires double 2,700 for Odin, Dormammu, and Thanos. Jean Grey, like the other Black Order characters, requires 1,350 Emkron crystals, or the Chaos Nordstones for mutants, to get that same mastery. So half of what you would need for Dormammu, Thanos, and Odin. Now, it is nice that they didn't give us that 2,700 that they did with Odin, Thanos, and Dormammu, because it would mean that for free-to-play players, it would take them twice as much time to get Jean Grey up to 6-star mastery. However, by making the artificial cap 2,000, they've essentially done the same thing. They've lowered the number that we need to obtain, which makes it look prettier and easier at first glance, but because they've capped it at 2,000, it's going to make any future native tier 2 character much more difficult to max out in the first few days unless you spend real money. And that is a bit of a kick in the pants to the community, especially to the veterans who play this game every single day. Another example, which mirrors the similarities, is the Black Antimatter. It takes 4,400 Black Antimatter that you then need to rank up to various shapes to get one of these native tier 2 characters that are not the super premium ones to 6 stars. Same thing for Jean Grey, 4,400 Phoenix Feathers. So again, guys, you can see much of the template, much of the blueprint for the original native tier 2 characters, not including Thanos, Odin, and Dormammu, was copied and pasted for Jean Grey. Her costs, in terms of bios, in terms of Black Antimatter, which we now call Phoenix Feathers, and Emkron Crystals, which we would have called Chaos Nordstones, is exactly the same as Supergiant, Ebony, Black Dwarf, Proxima, etc. The gold cost is somewhere in the middle. It's about 60 million, whereas Thanos and the rest are about 80 million. The bios is less. It's about 3,000 bios, whereas the other guys took, I believe, about 6,000 bios. So she's somewhere in the middle, but closer to the higher end for cost. However, with the cost of the Epic Quest for Wolverine being 1,000 feathers and 1,000 crystals, with the cost of Jean Grey and Wolverine and also their gears being additional feathers, and in addition to that, the fact that when you farm for Emkron crystals and feathers, you actually get a disproportionate amount. You get far more feathers per day than you get crystals. So you're going to hit that cap of 2,000 feathers long before you hit the cap for crystals. What that means, you'll start farming feathers and they'll just go to waste. They'll just burn up in the air, as they're not supposed to, because phoenixes are everlasting, as we know from Harry Potter. So this gripe is one that is real. This gripe is one that I can see is upsetting the community, and it's given us, and frankly it's given me, the impression that Netmarble doesn't want people to rapidly hoard these resources and then max out new native tier 2 X-Men when they inevitably come, because this, as we're mostly sure, is the first wave of X-Men. There will be more X-Men to come, that we're almost 100% sure of, and with more X-Men we can expect more native tier 2 X-Men. What we won't accept, or we won't expect at this point, is to be able to get them as veterans on the first day, unless we're going to drop money on whatever pack they're selling, because we won't have enough hoarded resources to automatically rank them up. And that is a very bad feeling to have, because in about a month or two, all of the farming that most players are going to do in the veiled threat missions and in the mutual enemy missions are going to be just for gold, because we're going to hit the max on crystals, we're going to hit the max on feathers, and then what's the point of farming those missions? You're literally telling us we shouldn't play these modes anymore because they won't give us the primary resource they're supposed to give us. I think if Netmarble had done this a little bit differently, if they had raised the cap a little bit higher, if they had introduced a cap way back when for Black Antimatter and Chaos Nordstones, if they had even just given us an explanation, a real proper explanation for why they put a cap on this, maybe I wouldn't be saying this right now to you guys. Maybe the community would feel a little bit better about it. But right now, I think something should change. I think they should take a look at this again and maybe rejig some of the numbers. I'm not sure, but I think in its current state, it's quite upsetting to the community. The only other possible explanation I could have for why they capped these resources is if they plan to introduce new resources again for the next wave of X-Men. And I know that's going to sound frightening to you guys, but it'll basically be the same in terms of the cost to the whales that want to spend the money, because instead of buying Phoenix Feathers, they'll just buy whatever other currency, but they'll still have to buy something because of this artificial ceiling on the item capacity. And the reason why I'm saying it's possible is because these are called Phoenix Feathers. And while Mcron crystals are central to the Marvel X-Men lore, the Phoenix Feathers are really only central to, the X-Men, the heroes, the protagonists, and Jean Grey / the Dark Phoenix entity. They're not really germane to, other mutants, other offshoot comic series and lines and stuff like that. It's not really, Dark Phoenix doesn't appear in every single storyline. So maybe it's possible that they come up with some new material for Mr. Sinister, because he's a different kind of native tier 2 and he does experiments on mutants, etc. I don't know. Maybe they introduce some kind of bottled sand for tier 2 Anakin and tier 2 Apocalypse because he comes from Egypt. I'm not sure. But that's the only not reasonable but possibly plausible explanation I can give you for why they put this cap. The only other explanations I can think of for this artificial cap are nefarious or upsetting at the very least. So with that, I want to implore you guys, let me know what you think. Let Netmarble know what you think in the comment section, and keep it civil, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope that this gets some kind of traction, and of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.